Okay, so we are live now. So, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining for this amazing discussion on this book, The Henna Artist by Alka Joshi. And we have her as well joining for this discussion, as well as she will be sharing with us about her own journey. And there will be five discussion points that will be taken up along with an AMA with her, and you guys can ask her, and people who are watching us, you can also put it in the live chat whatever you'd like to ask. And yeah, so about Merrative, we are basically a community of readers where you can find people who have read the same book or article as you have, and you can discuss with them news, books, articles across tech, poetry, business, fiction, etc. Anything that particularly interests you. And reading room is basically people just joining in together via a group discussion call. And sometimes we also call an author to join us and share perspectives and their own side of the story as well about writing the book. So again, thank you everyone for joining, and welcome Alka, and thank you for agreeing to do this session.
My
And
pleasure.
yeah, and Alka is joining us from US, and it's 10:30 p.m. At India as of now. So yeah, like I would like to ask you a few questions. Like first of all, what inspired you to really start off writing itself, in first place, and then we can move on to the book.
Sure. Three things had to happen in order for me to write The Henna Artist. One is in 2008, there was a mortgage crisis. Secondly, there was an MFA, the Masters in Fine Arts program in creative writing, 3 miles from my house. And then thirdly, my younger brother had bought a condo in Jaipur, so my parents could go back and forth and visit our extended family and relatives. And so the first thing, the mortgage crisis, what happened is that I'd been running my advertising and marketing consultancy for several decades by the time it happened. And every time we have a economic crisis, I know that there's going to be a recession following for about 2 years. All I have to do is weather 2 more years of much lower revenues, and then everything will pick up again. So I thought, okay, what can I do for 2 years aside from twiddling my thumbs? And my husband had been encouraging me to go get get some kind of instruction in long form fiction writing, because he said, you write commercials all day long, you write radio spots, you're actually writing mini stories. So why not learn how to do long form fiction? He said, I know you can do it, because when we go to restaurants, you're always making up stories about the diners at the table next to us. So why not learn how to do it and get paid for it? So I thought, okay, that's something I can do for 2 solid years, and then I'm done. So my goal during the 2 years in my MFA program, and there was one just 3 miles from my house, and I didn't want to do a long commute. So that was very easy for me to get enrolled in that and get involved in that. But my goal was to try to finish some kind of a draft of a novel. And I really thought that at the end of 2 years, I would have a novel that would get published. Well, it doesn't work out that way, because, what really happens is that you do draft after draft after draft, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper into your characters, and you learn how to make your scenes more compelling. And finally, by the 30th draft, you're ready to publish something like The Henna Artist. So it didn't quite happen that way. But what did happen during my MFA program is that my mother and I visited the condo that my younger brother had bought in Jaipur while I was writing The Henna Artist. And so I spent more time with my mother, taking her there, bringing her back, staying with her while she was there. I spent more time with my mother than I had since I was 18 years old and left for college. I'd never lived with her since then. But you spend all this time with your mom, and you're all alone, and you're going to all of the girlhood places that she used to go to. And so you start asking her questions. Mom, what was your favorite fruit? Mom, which of these saris would you pick out in the pink bazaar? Mom, did you wear these glass bangles when you were, growing up? And, how many did you wear? Did you always change them out with the color of your sari? And we went to visit my mother's school in Agra, where she was in college at the time that my grandfather called her back to Rajasthan and said, "We have found a young engineer for you to marry. It is time. You're 18 years old. You're getting a little old for us to look for a partner for you." And remember, this is 1955. So 18 was considered old to not be married yet. So my mom goes back. She gets married to my dad after seeing him just the one time. They didn't even talk to each other. And then in 4 short years, she has 3 children. And because my father is an up and coming engineer, he keeps getting promoted or he keeps getting transferred to different cities. So by the time I was 9 years old, my family had moved 5 different cities. And so my mother is constantly moving us every couple of years. You know, she's moving house, she's getting us used to different places and different schools and, you know, all of that. And then at the 10-year mark, my father announces that he wants to get a doctorate. And the kind of research that they're doing in his field of engineering is at the Iowa State University. So that's where we end up going. And so then my mother is responsible for moving the whole family over to another country, another culture, another way of being. And, you know, I felt like her life was never her own. She was always at the behest of either her father or my father or the 3 of us kids or whatever situation she found herself in. But one thing that my mother did was always tell me, "Honey, you are going to get to marry whomever you want. You will get to have whatever career you want. And you will also get to decide for yourself whether you want children, how many you want. All of those decisions will be your own because they were never my own." So I thought, wow, what a great gift for a woman who was raised so traditionally to be able to give to me. What can I give her back? And I thought the gift of giving her a character, of reimagining her life and having Lakshmi be the character that maybe she could have been had she left her marriage before the kids were born, had she decided for herself that she could have her own career, make her own money, do her own thing. Those were the things that I thought I could give her back as a gift. And that is how the Henna Artist was born.
Wow, I mean that's a great journey and that's a great tribute to your mother as well. Um, so the second question that I'd like to ask you is about the writing itself. So how was the writing aspect of doing this? Like you said, you were trained. You did take up a training in order to go ahead with this. But how were the initial days? Like just the initial days, not the complete story. But how did the first when you picked up the pen? How was it like?
Well, so one thing you have to know about me is I'm an artist. So when I was old enough, my mother remembers I would pick up a pen and I would just start drawing, pick up a pen or a pencil or a crayon, or even if I had no tool in my hand, I would just draw in the dirt. And I was always that way. My parents wondered where I got that gift of being an artist from. And, you know, they could never figure it out. But I love to draw, which means that I experience the world in color, in pattern, in relationships between people that I observe a lot. As an artist, you spend a lot of your time watching and observing before you figure out how the colors blend together, how the patterns blend together. If I'm drawing an orange, I know that it's not just orange, that it's got some specks of green in it and some blue. And you have to blend a lot of different colors together to get that particular orange on the canvas. So that is how I experienced the world. When I started writing, what I experienced were scenes in my imagination. The very first scene in the Henna Artist, and chapter 1, is Lakshmi drawing a fig and a wasp on Parvati's feet. And what's important about that is that that came to me in my imagination as if I were drawing it on a piece of canvas. So I saw the divan that Lakshmi and Parvati are sitting on. I see the way that the room is laid out, and it's very similar to the living room or the bedroom that I remember from my childhood in Bikaner. And I remember, the way the punka, would be going like this at the time with the vetiver grass, and how in the summertime, you needed that bit of air coming in, and you also needed the scent of the vetiver. It was the couscous. It was such a pretty fragrance. And so, I remember all of these things, and I could imagine the sari that Parvati is wearing, and I'm imagining what Lakshmi is wearing, and I'm imagining the gardeners beyond the windows who are working on all of the vines and everything in beyond the garden. And so that is what I imagine first in my head, a scene. And then I start writing down on my laptop, okay, here's everything that I'm seeing. And then I imagine another scene and another scene, and I thread them together like a string of pearls. That's really how my writing process goes. Other people have a very organized writing process, in the sense that they plot the whole novel out. They'll say, okay, chapter 1, this is going to happen. Chapter 2, this is going to happen. Chapter 3. And then they will actually start fleshing out what the scenes are in each chapter. But I go the reverse. I am what's called a plotter, Plodder, because I plod my way through the story. I don't actually know what's going to happen at the end. I have no idea how the characters are going to end up, but I plod my way through it, and I actually prefer to work that way because it surprises me.
Yeah, I mean, that's very well articulated. You've described your writing process so well. And for the first time, I've seen an author actually compare it with an art form. I mean, it is an art to write, but, to make it analogous to that makes it very easy to understand. So, yeah, the third and final question that from my side is, about. I think this book has, I've seen your stories, and it has touched an international audience. And in one of the stories, I think today only I saw that the lady was looking forward to coming to India and experiencing and wishes to experience what you have painted in the book. So, what do you? How does it feel like? Like to bring India out there in the world, and people are loving it. I'm very sure people are loving your book. And how does it make you feel? As a writer, as an Indian, as a woman as well.
It makes me feel proud. And one of the reasons that one of the accomplishments that I consider sorry, that was my dog. One of the things that I consider my personal accomplishment in writing this book is that I gained a tremendous sense of value to my heritage. So when we first came to America, and I was a newly arrived immigrant, here is what happens. People in 1967 didn't know very much about India. All they knew was that this was an underdeveloped country. This was a third world nation. This was a place where there were starving and illiterate people, and there were cows running in the streets whom we worshiped as sacred cows. And their impressions of India were completely negative. There was nothing positive about how they thought about India. And you can imagine how scary and confusing that was as a child of 9, 10, 11 years old to be asked questions like, what are you doing about all of the poor people in India? Well, I didn't know what they were talking about, because in India, you grow up with all of these contradictions. You will have poor people right next to a house that is very grand, and you will have, people in the streets cycling a rickshaw next to a fancy car. So you grow up with all these these contradictions without even thinking about them as contradictions. And partly what I was thinking is, hey, wait a minute. I came from I went to a convent school. I went to St. Sophia in Bikaner, and I wore a little blue starch uniform, and I was taught by Christian nuns all day long. I was taught English, and then we had 1 hour of Hindi. And on Saturdays, we had one of our household staff, they took the 3 of us to see the Hercules movies at the cinema. So I didn't understand when people said, how did you learn English? I was thinking, well, I learned it in school just like everybody else. So the kinds of questions I was being asked were so different from my experience of India and the India I came from, that I actually was ashamed of India. I was ashamed of where I came from. I didn't want anybody to even know where I came from. I didn't want them to keep asking me questions. And so for decades, I didn't go back to India. If my parents ever said, hey, we're going to go back, does anybody want to come with us? I never wanted to go. And my brothers didn't want to go. None of us wanted to go. Well, when I started writing The Henna Artist, and I was taking all of those trips back with my mother to Jaipur, where we did used to live at one time, I realized that I was seeing Jaipur through her eyes. And I was seeing all of the beauty of India alongside the poverty. I was seeing all of the crafts like henna in India alongside any of the colorism, the casteism, the classism. I was seeing all of the, this kind of burst of energy whenever you go into, a city bazaar. There's this huge vibrancy and all of this energy. And so that is what I was noticing. And I thought, oh, this is my India. This is the India I remembered. How have I stayed away from this for so long? And so I wanted to bring all of that in the book. I wanted to bring the beauty of and the joy and all of these age-old crafts that we still practice in India. And then this whole idea of, you can go to an Ayurvedic doctor in the morning and you can go to a medical doctor in the afternoon, and there is no contradiction in the minds of Indians to do that. Once again, it's a contradiction that exists, but it's not called out in India. It's considered perfectly normal. So those are all the things I wanted to bring out in my book, because I thought now at the age of 62, I can finally talk about India. I have the skills to talk about India, my India. Not the India that people knew back in 1967 or had heard about, or that were the India that was in my history books in America, but the India that I remembered. And so that is what is resonating with so many people around the world. That is what they're seeing about India, and it makes them want to go. I have so many readers who have said, I don't know anything about India. This is my first experience, and I want to go so badly now. And then I have all these people who are saying, will you lead us a trip through India? I'm like, no, yeah, there are people who are more qualified to do that than I am. And then, there are people who are saying, wow, I've never cooked Indian food before, but your book made me so hungry that now I want to go and eat Indian food or cook Indian food. And then, of course, there are all of the Indians, either in India or across the global diaspora, who have read the book and also tell me that it makes them proud to be from Rajasthan. It makes them proud to be from India. It makes them proud to be Indian, which was my intention all along for me. So I'm glad that it has also turned out to be true for other people.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes us, I think, feel proud as well. When I saw your stories, I was very happy, that finally India is being represented and the true art form, and people are really appreciating, and hopefully they get to see something beyond yoga and whatever politics that is going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All they think about India is yoga. And then now on television, they have seen all of these binging shows with weddings. So they think about the big
Yeah.
wedding, and they think about yoga. In 1967, you know what they used to think about also is hookahs. And my father and mother, of course, had one of those brass hookahs that everybody used to have. I don't know if people still do, but they had one up on our mantle in Iowa. And whenever Americans would come to visit, they would go, oh, do you smoke hashish? My parents are like, what? We don't smoke hash. This is just for tobacco. So these are all misperceptions about India that I hope to be able to correct in this book. because, okay, I think that one of the things that we women can do best as authors, and maybe many of your club members are also interested in writing someday. But one of the things that we women can do is write about the female perspective of whatever part of history we're writing from, even if it's the contemporary fiction that we're writing. We can write from a woman's perspective. We can write about what it was like to be a woman in that era, and we can correct the misperceptions that people might have about that particular time in India's past. Those things are really important. They have a place in society. Women have a place in society. Female writers have a place in society. And the onus to correct those misperceptions is usually falling upon female writers. And I hope that a lot of your members will take up that challenge and write about women the way life is really lived for them.
Yeah, definitely. All of these readers here are avid readers. I'm not sure if they write, but hope your words really inspire them to take an action. So, moving on, we'll finally start with the discussion. There are 5 points that we had decided earlier, and I first of all, we would like to start with introduction of everyone who has joined here. So, I'll start with Lekha.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lekha. I'm from Kolkata but currently living in Mangalore. So I like contemporary fiction and mythology books. And regarding this book, I got to know from Reese Witherspoon Book Club. I saw your interview with Reese, so it was so good. It actually inspired me to buy this book and read. And I suggested Merrative for this book discussion. So that's it.
Awesome. Welcome, Lekha. And Ruchi, you're on mute.
Hello. Yeah, so I had joined Bookstagram recently in July, and Henna Artist was one of those books which had a lot of buzz and it was quite hyped. So that was when I decided, after a lot of recommendations, I decided to read the book, and yeah, it was one of our best reads of 2020.
Awesome. Where you're
Apart from
coming
that,
from?
I am based out of Mumbai, and
Okay.
I like reading mythology as well as fiction books.
Awesome. Neha?
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Neha, and I'm also an avid reader since so many years. Uh, Alka, frankly speaking, I picked up the book because I am also an artist and I draw mandala and all. So I could, relate with the pictures that you were depicting in that and the basis of, especially the mandala that she drew in Sheila's house. So yeah, I could relate with that, and like to read the description that you have put, and I think you've depicted a very good picture. And the one question that I wanted to ask is why did you choose that era of India when in 1955 immediately after independence? But now I understood because that was the era that your mom could relate with. So I got to know now after hearing you. And yeah, I am from Mumbai. I also run a book club, the Bookish Tribe, and we are also currently having the books of the month and all. So we would also like to introduce this in our book club someday in the future. Apart from that, I usually read thrillers and murder mysteries. I mean, I've been reading since last 20, 25 years. So yeah, this is a new genre for me, but I loved reading your book. Thanks.
Can I comment on her question about why I chose the 50s,
Yeah,
or should I?
sure.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
So one of the other reasons, aside from the fact that my mother and father were married in 1955 and that I could actually get them to answer a lot of questions for me about what life was like there. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was that in 1955, 8 years after independence, Indians were rebuilding India. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about very often. It doesn't get addressed. Most people, when they think about the era right after independence, they talk about partition, which affected 14 to 16 million Indians going back and forth across that border between Pakistan and India. But what people don't talk about is the exuberance of 300 million Indians who were in India, who were not impacted by partition, but who were really excited about having their country back. Can you imagine what it must have felt like after 200 years of having the British under their feet all the time to suddenly have the independence to say, oh, you know what? Now we get to decide how to set our policies. Now we get to decide how to educate our children. Now we get to rebuild all of those industries that the British completely destroyed while they were here. The shipbuilding industry, the textile industry, they broke the thumbs of the weavers so that India could not produce their own textiles and they had to buy from the British Victorian mills. And so, there were so many industries that the British destroyed. There were so many industries, or there was so much wealth in India that was pillaged over centuries by Mughals, by explorers from Europe. They wanted all of the silks and the spices and the gold and everything that India had to offer. And so I wanted to talk about the fact that Indians, despite all of that colonization and invasion and the pillaging and raping that went on, despite all of that, Indians still thrived. They still wanted to rebuild, and they rebuilt that country. And the country that exists today, yes, it has its problems, but Indians are an amazing people. They are resilient, and they will always thrive no matter what you do to them. So that was one really major reason why I wanted to talk about that era. That was the start of India saying, we are not going to lay down and die despite everything that's happened to us.
Thanks, Alka.
Okay, Charvi, you would like to go next? Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Charvi. I'm from Mumbai. I've always lived here and I was transported to Jaipur because of your book, Alka. So thank you very much. In spite of having been there, it painted a very different picture for me. And I picked it up because of Reese's book club as well, but I hadn't read about all the hype. And I heard you speaking, not to Reese, but another interview that you did, and I liked your hair. So that's why I picked up your book, honestly. But I'm glad I did. And never have I read a book where I wanted to discuss minutely so many points, and then have actually had the chance to speak to the author. So I'm very excited for this conversation. And also, I've been a reader always, so I kind of related to your protagonist Lakshmi and her sister Radha because they were born readers as well. So I quite enjoyed that connection.
Awesome. Shreya Sen.
Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Shreya. I'm from Mumbai. Hi, Alka. So nice hearing you, and it's such an honor seeing you on this discussion. I have been an avid reader, and I'm a photographer. So one of the reasons I read mostly fiction, contemporary fiction, as well as I am always leaning towards books which have strong women protagonists. I came across your book because of Bookstagram and Reese's book club. More than that, I've always been, I want to write, and I've always been interested to understand what kind of South Asian literature has a global appeal. And I feel, and I'm really grateful you actually shared your process because it brought to light a process that I can start with. So thank you for doing that. The I love the book because you painted almost a photograph for me, and I was reading it while I was shooting a wedding in Jaipur. I shoot a lot of weddings in Jaipur. So it was I it was a very vivid experience. Like I also experienced books because I'm very visual, and you painted it absolutely beautifully. So I'm excited to discuss the book with you, definitely. I just have one question. What part of I know you call it the henna artist, and a lot of us here call it mehendi.
Yeah.
How much was it influenced? Um, to adapt to an American reader or an international reader rather than someone from inside?
You know, it's interesting. I get that questions from Indians all the time, and I never had to adapt it to anything. I didn't
Okay.
have to adapt it to an Indian reader or to a Western reader. I just wrote the book I wanted to write. And this is very important for any of you guys who want to write. Write the book that you want to write. Don't write a book because you say, oh, you know, rape in Delhi is really a big thing right now. I read about it in the news all the time. So I'm going to write a book about rape. Don't do that. I'm going to write a book about weddings because weddings are really big in the Western world and in the global world. You know, they love these Indian weddings. Don't do that. Write with an intention about what it is, why it is you're writing, and why you're writing about what you want to write. I wanted to reimagine a life for my mother as a very independent woman. What could she have done? She had no formal training to do anything. She was just raised to be a wife, basically. So what could she have done? Well, any woman in India, you know, I remember as a kid growing up that, you know, women always had their hands painted for one occasion or another. And I always wanted for my mom to have the henna artist also do my hands when she was doing my mom's hands. So I thought, okay, that is something almost any Indian woman could do. That is kind of how my story developed. But the intention was always very clear. I wanted to give this woman agency that my mother didn't have. So make sure that whatever you write about, it starts from your intention about what you want to write about, why you want to write about it. And as I said, I'm very clear about why I wrote from the 1950s from that perspective. I wanted for other people to have the pride about being Indian that I think a lot of Indians suffer from. I think they don't have that pride because we were raised essentially in a colonized society by parents who were beaten down by the colonists, you know, who were influenced by how they could talk about their own culture. So I wanted to have that pride instilled in the readers. And so when you start with the real foundational intentions like that, you don't have to worry about making it global, not making it global. I have people from all over the world. The book is being translated into 23 languages. I have people from all over the world who write to me and say, hey, listen, I don't know anything about India. I am from Peru. I am from Russia. I am from France. And this could be my life. This could be my mother's life. This could have been my grandmother's life. That is what happens when you start from a pure intention. You are then suddenly writing about every woman. You are not just writing from a perspective.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Guys, just a just a heads up. Like we can have the questions like in the AMA. Right now, we can just start off with the 5 points that we have. So moving on, Gunjan.
Hi everyone, I'm Gunjan here. I'm from Mumbai, and I am a book hoarder. So I see books trending. It's a habit. It's a very bad habit, but it's there. So I see books trending, and I saw the henna artist kept popping up in my feed. So I went and I bought it like a true hoarder. I went and I bought it, and I was like, okay, now it's there, and I'm happy, and I'll read it. So I keep going back on my Kindle physical books and all, and I was like, and then Charvi told me about the book, and she said, this meet is happening, and would you read it? I said, yes, I have it on my TV. I'll start reading it. So I immediately picked it up, and I enjoyed reading it. Though I have a little aversion to henna, I don't like the smell of it. So I did not imagine any of the scenes where she was applying henna. I was like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. You can't smell it. So I said, as long as I don't imagine it, I can't smell it, and so I everything else I imagine beautifully. And you brought Jaipur to me in a totally different light because I had visited it once and I was not very happy, but I saw a different side of it. And maybe if I go again, I think I would like to see the Jaipur that you have depicted in the book. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So finally, we have Shreya. Um, Shreya Jadhav. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm
Hi.
Shreya, based out of Mumbai. We picked the henna artist because of the hype, and as she mentioned, it was all over our Instagram feed. And that's the reason me and my sister Ruchi we decided to pick this book for buddy reading. But I have to mention one thing that it feels great to read about Lakshmi as an independent woman back in that era. And I feel we have many stories about brotherhood, bro code, and all, but we have never celebrated sisterhood before. That's the reason I feel this book is a very great example of sisterhood. The relationship between Lakshmi and Radha is really beautiful. That's all.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'll start with the first point. There are some 5 points that we picked up from the back of your book itself, and everyone can just share one by one. You know what they think about that particular discussion point, and if you think your point is like already being said by others, then maybe you can like skip, or maybe you can keep it short by saying that it's I also think the same, and we can move on to give others a chance. And you can cross talk with each other, of course, like all have been doing, and but just don't like debate or don't cut off when the other person is speaking. That's all. Otherwise you can just share. So the first point is, could Lakshmi would have found another way to escape her abusive marriage should she have tried to make her marriage work the second time around? So, who would like to go ahead? I think I'll start with Lekha first.
Yeah, I think there was no other way that she could have escaped this abusive marriage because she didn't get any support from her parents. She was poor, she was from a village. And at that time, when getting out of marriage is termed as taboo, it still does, but that time it was extreme case. So I think it was the only way that she could have thought by doing something on her, like by going to a big city and trying to do something for herself and make herself uh, like some getting some job or all that. So I think that was the only way. And about getting back with the husband, I don't think that she should have done that because uh, it was an abusive marriage and he abused her. He never respected her when she was nothing. Now when she got onto her feet and doing something for herself which she has started from scratch, at that time when person comes back to her, obviously he will want to get back with her because she is she is famous there. So I think she shouldn't have done that. So her decision was good that she didn't get back to her. I was really relieved at the end that she didn't do that. Else I would have been really disappointed.
Okay. Awesome. Ruchi, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So, one thing that I would like to say is in any kind of a relationship, what matters more than love is respect. And when we talk about abusive marriages, where respect is next to zero, I think there was no way going back for Lakshmi. And if she would have given a second chance, then it would have went as in submitting to her husband's demands in the future as well. Maybe he could have taken her for granted. And yeah, as Lekha mentioned, it was very good that she did not give him a second chance, which I felt that if she would have gone back, then it would have actually changed the whole perspective of her character, which was set as a headstrong woman since the beginning. So yeah, there's no chance going back in an abusive marriage, and it's better to be independent. And being in that era, Lakshmi taking such a huge step, uh, it was great.
Awesome. Neha, would you like to go next?
Yeah. So the question itself says that should she have tried to get back or found another way? I don't think there was any other way in that era. So as the other two said, there was no chance of pleading with him or something. the only option she had of running away. So that was very nicely depicted. And should she have gone back? I don't know. I mean, because her husband was also a changed man, what Lakshmi took the decision, she wanted a new path for herself. She wanted to move out of Jaipur itself. So I don't think that would have, binded her. So yeah, she took a good decision of moving out of the city and moving out of his life. So that ending was also good. Good. I mean, it was a better ending than what we can expect, or compromising. So it was not a compromise from her side.
Great. Gunjan?
Mostly everyone has said everything. I'll keep it short. Lakshmi leaving her husband had me going, go girl, go. That's like the way to do it. I was happy. And going back to the husband, no need to go back. I don't think so. Marriage is the end all be all for every woman. And it shows very clearly that you can make something out of yourself on your own. And sometimes I think you yourself are enough for you don't need a companion, and you may find friendships and all, but marriage is not necessarily the so being in that era, showing such a strong woman character was a great plus for me.
Great. Ashreya, you'd like to go next?
Um, I think, I mean, same thoughts as everyone. I think a lot of the book I feel had to do with resilience, and um, so in terms of her walking out and sticking to her decision even when everything was completely working against her. In the theme of resilience, you can always go back to what might be comfortable and what society might accept. But I'm glad she stuck her ground. She held on to her freedom and did the difficult part of just being independent and moving forward, and great things worked out. So I'm glad she stuck on her path. That's what I would say.
Charvi?
So yeah, I agree with everyone who spoke so far. But I wanted, this was one of my questions for Alka, in fact. Did you ever consider writing it into the story that she did go back to him, because we saw him change over time? And there is good enough reason to for people to hope that, because people who don't think like Gunjan and I do, where you don't need to be married to feel complete, then did you ever consider that the character should go back to the husband just so that society is happy?
I never considered that she would go back for two major reasons. One is that I think it is easier to forgive than to forget. And once you have been in a relationship which has been abusive in any way, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, whatever, verbal, I think that the moment that you go back and that kind of behavior rears even a tiny bit of its ugly head, you are immediately going to be transported to the past and say, oh my God, it's starting all over again. So I actually think that it's easier, now that I've been through several relationships, I think it's easier to forgive and say, okay, I need to move on from here, rather than to forget what happened in the past. I think that's much harder for a brain to do. Secondly, the reason that they can't really ever make it again as a couple is because Hari wants children and Lakshmi does not. She absolutely does not want children. So that is not a reconcilable difference. That is definitely going to be something that would get in the way of their marriage. And that it's the thing that kept him angry at her. And it's the thing that made him abusive toward her, because he found out that she was deliberately keeping herself childless. And I think that I fundamentally believe that all women deserve every option available in front of them, including all reproductive rights, so that they can make the best decisions for their own destinies, so that they are not beholden to somebody else making that decision for them. So I firmly believe that Lakshmi has held on to those reproductive rights for herself and said, you know what? if I have the option and I have this thing called the cotton root bark that's going to keep me childless, I will keep myself childless, because that is not something I want in my life. It's not that she doesn't love children. Obviously, she is very attached to Malik. She is very attached to Radha. She does her duty by both of them, and she wants to protect them and love them, but she doesn't want her own children. And I think that in India, it is so difficult for a woman to say, I don't want my own children. And I think that women should be allowed to be able to say that. That shouldn't be something that makes women feel embarrassed to say, or that they will be less of a woman if they say that. I myself have never wanted my own children. And I am so happy that my mother gave me that option. She never said, honey, you have to give me grandchildren. I will not be complete unless I have grandchildren. And so I am delighted that I had a mother who gave me that freedom. And I could actually say, because I knew from the time I was a little girl that I didn't want children. Everybody on the playground would be saying, I'm going to have 2, I'm going to have 3, I'm going to have 4. And I'd be like, how do they know? Because I can't even imagine myself having 1. And so, I'm delighted with my decision. It has really served me well. My husband and I are both happy that we don't have children. But I just think that it's every woman's decision. It should never be society's burden placed on them to say, you need to give us children, because that's the way women have always done it. So that is why I think that is an irreconcilable difference between Lakshmi and Hari.
Thank you for that. And as a reader, I'm very happy that the story didn't go there like everyone else here, I think. And also, I really enjoyed how you worked some like big themes like abusive marriages and reproductive rights in such a subtle way that they didn't feel like you were shining a spotlight on them, especially just to be able to make a statement. So I quite enjoyed
I know, Charvi, right? Because there are so many productions that I have seen from India that make such a big deal out of it that it feels like they're forcing something down your throat. And what I wanted to do was to weave these themes about what women face on a day-to-day basis very organically into the story of Lakshmi, so that you can read this novel on many different layers. You can read it on the story level. You can read it on the level of classism and colorism, and who is fairer, who deserves a better marriage, who deserves more dowry, all of that kind of stuff. That's all woven in. And then there's that whole thing woven in about the herbal medicine versus Western medicine. And then, of course, there's a whole thing that's woven in about city people, village people, rural people, and how they treat each other. So there's a lot of different layers that you can read into this story. And I wanted it to be just naturally woven in, as opposed to, let me hit you on the head with the rape thing. Let me hit you on the head with the, colorism thing. Let me hit you on the head with, all of the reproductive rights. So, thank you very much for noticing that was a very easy way to sort of weave all of that into the story.
Thank you.
Great. Shreya Jadhav.
I agree with the views expressed by others. Also, I feel that in an Indian society, mostly we are taught the values of patience and resilience more than other values. It's more important to adjust with others, to adjust to what the society thinks. The fact that Lakshmi decided to take the decision of running away from her family in her own hands, it's really a brave step. That's why I don't feel that, as others said, that she must actually go back to her husband just because now he is a changed man. That's all.
Great. I think Alka, you've already presented, your point as to what you think about this one. So, do you want to add something to it, or else I'll move on to the next one? I'll
Move
move on
on.
to the next one. Okay, great. Okay, so the second point is, what do you see as similarities between Lakshmi and the Maharanis she worked for? Who has more freedom and who has more advantages? So, this time, I'd like to start with Neha. You'd like to go ahead?
Sure. So Between the similarities, I definitely think Lakshmi has more freedom than the Maharanis because they were all, under the guise of money and everything. They had to compromise. First of all, even if you see in the case of Parvati, she knew what her husband was up to, and yes, she had to, everything. She understood everything, but she had to put a brave face and just go on. It was like they were all trapped in that marriage, and they were all just dolls, or they were presented with such a such stereotype. Okay, you are supposed to be the Maharani and you are supposed to do these duties. Apart from that, whatever happens has to be swept in the carpet. So that way, Lakshmi had definitely more freedom because she chose whatever she wanted to do as per her choice. Even for Radha, she made the choices, and everything regarding Radha or herself, she made the choice. So I think definitely Lakshmi has more choice and freedom.
Great. Charvi, you'd like to go next?
Yes, I'd keep it short, but I want to hear everyone else's thoughts on this. I feel freedom as such is a very subjective concept. So, in what context do we speak about? If we're talking about financial freedom, of course, the Maharanis had more of that. If we're talking about life decisions, like Neha mentioned, their lives were more structured and more answerable to society in a different way again. So, I felt like it's a balance on which lens you're looking at freedom through. I'd like to hear everyone else's
Uh,
thoughts on that.
okay. Ruchi, you'd like to go next?
Yeah. I would like to agree with Neha's point that yeah, Lakshmi had more freedom considered with that of the Maharanis, and we can actually talk about the stereotypes. So Maharanis can be actually considered as the prisoners of the palace. So they were basically under the rules and norms of what the society was expecting from them, and even though they knew of the even they knew about their husbands or whatever things that were ongoing in the palace, still they just kept on going because that was the path that a maharani should follow. So I believe that they really didn't have the freedom of their own, a voice. They didn't have a voice. So yeah, Lakshmi was more forward considered to the maharanis.
Great. Lekha?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. So, yeah, she has freedom. Lakshmi has freedom because she was doing what she wanted to do, and but the Maharanis didn't have because they were binded by culture and they were under the like eye of society. That whatever they do, that will be seen and that will be pointed out that they are doing it wrong. Even if Parvati knew that her son is like doing everything wrong at such a young age, instead of like making things right, she was just covering up whatever he was doing because he is the heir of her palace. So yeah, she didn't have the freedom to make her son as a good person, which as a mother is a prime responsibility. So in that case she didn't have any freedom. And yeah, and talking about advantages, this the people who are living in palace, they have the money, power, everything. They are privileged ones, so they have all the like they can do whatever they want. And that's what happened with Radha when she gets pregnant. And when they get to know, they just stop like make Lakshmi's life a hell. And they stopped everything, means tell everything that she has done something which she didn't do. And her like she was not able to make earn money after that incident. So yeah, they have their advantages which they used in the book. And that was the part which was really like heartbreaking for me when I read that after she had after what Lakshmi has done to build her life there, everything like crashed because of one incident which she is not responsible. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Shreya Jadhav, you'd like to go next?
I feel Maharanis as well as Lakshmi, both of them had the same type of freedom. I say this because even Lakshmi wasn't granted freedom. She decided to break off the shackles of her husband, of her mother-in-law, she ran away. That's when she got the freedom she wanted for. The same could be the case with the Maharanis as well. They decided to live up to that image which society had created. They decided that they wanted to be the way society has always portrayed Maharanis to be. That's the reason they did not experience the freedom the women actually want. So I feel if they decide, if they take the decisions just like Lakshmi did, Lakshmi being a commoner, she decided that whatever she wanted to do, she had to decide it. Society could not do that. That's the reason she could do it the way she wanted it to be. I feel freedom, it depends upon the way you take decisions. If you take it according to your own self, you can experience the life the way you want it to be.
So, if I can just interject, the hierarchy of freedom goes like this. Radha has the most, then Lakshmi, and then the Maharanis. And the reason I say that is because Radha has the ability, because she's been raised in a village, because she didn't really have two parents who were watching out after her, and she largely raised herself. She found a way to get to Lakshmi so cleverly, 800 miles away. She has the ability that I think we all do as girls to have a lot more freedom. We are so much more expressive when we are girls. We are loud, we laugh, we show ourselves off, we let our light shine when we are girls, until the time that people start telling us, don't be so loud, speak more softly, smile a lot more. People will like you if you smile a lot more. Make sure you always comb your hair and present yourself well in society. So there are all these things that we are told to do that make us a little bit less free. And this is where Lakshmi is right now. She has her 30.
Is it my internet?
She is allowed to do, only within the bounds of how she's allowed to be with these ladies, how she can't ever let them actually know what she thinks about them, and how she's actually reacting to the slights and the insinuations that they throw at her. She also has to thwart the eye of men who, give her unwanted advances. And I'm sure all of us have experienced that. It's something that we women are taught to do delicately, so that we don't actually put somebody off. We are told to extricate ourselves from those kinds of unwanted attentions, so that we don't create a scene. So Lakshmi is free, but she has also been tempered by society. She knows that she has to follow these rules in order to get along. The Maharanis have probably the most rules that they have to obey, because they are in the public eye all the time, and everything they do is scrutinized by the public. So there are these three different levels. And I wish that for all women, that we do get to be more of Radha than anybody else. When I was in the corporate world, I was constantly being told that I was too ambitious. I was constantly being told to stop asking for more money, to stop asking for a bonus because I did something spectacular, to stop asking for more than they thought I deserved. And it took me 11 years to realize that that was really damaging to my self-esteem, that was really hurtful to me as a person, to constantly be told that I was asking for more than I deserved. Really, who gets to decide what you deserve and what you don't deserve? You determine that for yourself. So after 11 years of working in ad agencies and being told this kind of thing, I just thought, you know what, I have to leave. For my own sanity, I have to leave, and I have to create a world in which I can develop my own parameters. So I formed my own agency, and I only hired women. I hired female directors, female writers, female event planners, female web designers, because they're out there and you can hire them and you can choose to hire them. And my female team did extraordinary work. And in the first year of my agency, I billed $400,000 because I knew I could do it. It didn't matter that the people I worked for didn't think I could do it. Fuck them. Fuck the people who tell you that you are not big enough. You are big enough. You are strong enough. You are probably far more capable than the people you are working with. So be strong. Determine your own rules for yourself. And I decided to be the Radha as opposed to being the Maharanis. You know, I decided to just own my power and to say, I can do all of these things. So I think that those are the three stratas of power that, or freedom, that I'm trying to delineate in the novel.
Okay, great. Gunjan, you'd like to add?
I think everybody's covered everything. The only thought that I had in my head was that if ever there was a museum or a zoo, uh, the Indian women, freedom is very subjective.
Live streaming
So
is
I
on.
think as a woman, true freedom will be the day that I can do anything without any thought popping in my head. What will that person or this person say? And nobody can pinpoint to me and say you can't do this. That is the kind of privilege the males enjoy right now. I want that, and that is
Yes.
the day we have freedom.
Yes.
So
yay, Gunjan. Well said.
thank you. So yeah, I don't think so. Anybody like she said, Radha had a little more. It's all subjective. Who has little more and who has little less of freedom? But true freedom is when I can behave the same way a Ravi or one of the other male characters behave. That would be fun, actually. Okay.
Awesome. Shreya Sen, you'd like to add something?
No, I think everyone's covered everything. I mean, the only thing, I mean, in that time, Alka, did you research into the behavior, the dual life like these Maharajas lived? Because I started asking around, and a lot of people shared that all of these Maharajas apparently had white concubines, and it was normal that they had this dual life, and women just had to accept it. The irony is, it apparently in a lot of smaller cities, even in Jaipur, this very silent culture um, like of wife swapping and all of that apparently still continues, and it is absolutely a silent culture, that women have to suck up, that women have to continue being in the parda. I've shot weddings in Rajasthan where women have to wear the parda, and these are women who've at times been educated abroad, and they continue saying that they have to wear the full parda. So did you research into this unfairness that women tend to experience during that time or in the current society? Like how did
Yeah.
you imagine this life?
Yeah, I think Shreya, I think that that men of every society, every culture, every country, when they have wealth and power, they have always had this luxury of being able to have an extra on the side. That is just, it's just prevalent in every culture. It's not just the Indian culture. For the Maharanis, what I did was I modeled a younger Maharani after Gayatri Devi, who was, of course, Jaipur's Maharani for such a long time. She was the third wife of the Maharaja of Jaipur. He married her for love. He did not marry her for, property or for status or power. And she was educated in Swiss boarding schools, and she did start this wonderful school, the Maharani Gayatri Devi School, the MGD school that everybody still sends their daughters to, and it is such a prestigious school. And I had the privilege of speaking to the senior girls there in 2019 when I visited India. And they invited me to speak, and I had them do a little exercise, a writing exercise, while I was with them. And they're so delightful. They're such smart gals and so world weary. They're already so knowledgeable about the world. They've already traveled and everything, which is wonderful. And so Maharani Gayatri Devi had written a book called A Princess Remembers, and she had tried to abolish purdah during her lifetime. She was not successful at it, and it was a real source of discomfort for her, which is one of the reasons why she founded the school, because she wanted for young girls to have a seat at the global table. It was very important for her to educate girls to the point where they will go abroad, they will have their own careers, they will do their own thing. And she described in the book very much what their circumstances were like, what their life in the palace was like, what things look like in the palace. And so I used a lot of those triggers to incorporate into my novel about the Maharanis. But ultimately, I think, like I said, I think that men of power and privilege, you don't even have to look very far to find them. Here in the United States, it was that awful president that we had, the President Trump, who said that if you have money, women will let you do anything. And then, of course, we have Francois Mitterrand, whom we all found out had a child, a love child, and this mistress of 19 years. The elder President Bush had a mistress of 18 years in Washington, D.C., and that was one of the reasons why his wife, the First Lady, didn't spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. So, men of power and privilege have always had a bit on the side, and it is something that they get to have. I don't know if that's going to convey to women once they are also in those positions of power. I don't know if the female prime ministers of New Zealand do the same thing, but it definitely seems to fall on men to do, to have those kinds of lives.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, very well spoken. Okay, I'll move on to the third point. When Radha enters Lakshmi's life, Lakshmi becomes responsible for raising her headstrong younger sister. Do her conflicts with Radha resonates with any of your experiences parenting a teenager? So, I guess we can have a perspective base, like people who are not even having kids or something, but we all can share our own experiences around this question. So, I'll start with Gunjan this time.
Yeah. Oh, you saw me making that face now when you said teenager. I saw. Okay. Okay. I'll admit it. I don't like teens. I'm just getting old and I don't like younger people at all. So it's okay. So I have I don't think so of Radha as headstrong, it's more of an innocence because, coming from a village, I'm pretty sure she's watching all these Western movies where there's love happening and all that. So she kind of believes that there's love to be found. She's not become cynical and everything. And who has ever listened to their parents when they were 13? Like, if anybody has, you all are saints. I'm sorry. But no, if my mom said don't do this at 13, I think it was a surety that I would go ahead and do it. So it still is actually, but anyhow, no, but I feel the way Lakshmi tweeted Radha was a little, like she was treating her as well as she knew how to treat a younger sibling, because she did not have any experience in that. And I felt it was if she could have had a heart to heart, like Radha started liking Kanta so much only because Kanta was, listening to her, having a heart to her, listening to her conversations, trying to understand what Radha was facing. I think that is what was missing in their relationship. And once they came on that page, it worked out well for them later on when they understood each other. So if she would have been frank with Radha from the very beginning, instead of telling somebody that, oh no, sex is wrong, why not tell them what are the implications that are involved, how it affects your life? So I think both the things have a very different bearing. So I will have to one day bring up a teenager, and I hope that my heart to heart and my frankness will work. And let's pray on that.
Okay, awesome. Ruchi, you'd like to go next?
Yeah, so Lakshmi had actually created a life for herself. Like she was working very hard since the past 13 years to be where she was right now. And so basically, she was into her own shell. And when Radha entered her life, it actually turned out to be a jeopardy because she had no experience of sharing her life with anyone else, be it her sister or a husband or anyone. So having Radha and actually a teenager. So basically, she was like a child to Lakshmi, and Lakshmi didn't actually wanted children. So I think that is one point where Lakshmi was being too hard on Radha, and maybe yeah, as Gunjan said, Lakshmi was really emotionally stoic towards Radha. Maybe if she would have been a little calmer, if she would have understood Radha, like just like a lady or a woman to woman talk, maybe Radha would have understood. But yeah, because of Lakshmi's ignorance towards Radha and just concentrating completely on her career, and that is where Kanta's influence came into picture, and Radha got connected more towards Kanta, and I believe that is somewhere that led to her developing all those uh, flowery pictures in our mind that these kind of things exist, that you can go and do you can have a boyfriend who is um, like higher in your strata. She believed all those kind of fairy tale kind of stuff. So I think Lakshmi should have been a little softer on her sister, but yeah, you cannot completely blame Lakshmi as well for she had a life of her own.
Great. Neha, you'd like to go next?
So yeah, there are two parts of the question. I I am a parent to two teenagers, so I will answer that later on. The first part, Lakshmi was responsible, but she had no experience with children, and as you said, she was not fond of children. So when I think Radha was thrust upon her, she was totally clueless how to handle her. And for many days, I think she did not even give time, or she just told her that you have to stay home, and she ignored her, which is very typical considering, when you're afraid of what their reaction will be, that is the thing you do. Now, coming back to teenagers, I have two teenagers, and I know that no amount of experience or anything advice will work with them. Both are different, and in this case, way that you have to understand the mind of teenagers is through not befriending them, as Gunjan said, but Gunjan, even befriending doesn't work at times. So you can just befriend them, you can talk to them, but no lecturing and nothing. And here, I think if I would suggest that if Lakshmi would have, had Radha since the beginning, she would have known exactly what pinpoints her anger and anything else. Because as if I want to relate to my two kids, which are totally different in temperament, I know what would trigger them, and so I get to manipulate those things, and then they agree to me. So I now have understood how to handle teenagers. But even then, there are some days where they won't listen to me, or they would do exactly the opposite of what you say. So there's nothing that Lakshmi could have done that would have changed her relationship with Radha, because she was not used to the temperament of Radha, and she did not know what Radha, exactly meant. What she wanted in life, and she did not know deeper what Radha's likes and dislikes were. So I think this would answer the question.
Okay, awesome. Shreya Jadhav, you'd like to go next?
I feel everyone has summed it up well, so nothing to add on.
Okay. Lekha?
Yeah, first I would like to answer like the encounter with a teenager. So I just have one encounter with my niece, like she's distant niece, and after having an encounter with her, I understood that I don't like childrens much. So, and she is like I can't control her. She is all over the place. She like nothing will make her sit or make her understand what I want to say. So that day taught me that it is a really tough task. So that experience, when I read this book, I actually connected with Lakshmi on that point, that she is a 30-year-old woman who has no experience of raising her children. And one day a girl comes into her life and she has that responsibility of raising her. She doesn't know that how what to do with her in the first place. In first few days we see that she is just observing her and just trying to connect with her, but that is not happening. And then one day she sees that the connection she wanted with Radha, that connection she had with Kanta, because maybe that Lakshmi didn't had that motherly instinct, because she didn't like children much, and Kanta was trying to have baby, and she already has those feelings. So when she met Radha, so Kanta like tried to treat her like her own children and tried to do what she would have done with her own girl. So I think that's why they have this connection. But I totally understood the Lakshmi's point of view in this thing, and I think that's the thing that should have happened after not having any experience in this regard.
Great. Charvi?
Can I ask you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
a question?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that in the 1950s, when maybe your parents were growing up, do you think that it would have been possible to be as obstreperous as Radha is? Or do you think that the teenagers today, the way that Neha was describing her teenagers, do you think the teenagers of today are a little bit different than the teenagers of, let's say, the 1950s and 60s in India?
Yeah,
Yeah.
anyone can go ahead.
Yeah, Alka, I would definitely say not only in 1955, even we were different from what teenagers are today. So if our parents said you have to do this, we knew that we had to do this. Nowadays,
Yeah.
so they don't do that. They would ask me, why are we supposed to do that? First, I have to answer 10 questions and then they will do the work. It was not the case with me. So I don't think even my parents would have, had that privilege as teenage, what these children have now.
So what has changed?
Because no, the thing that has changed is we are more transparent now. I am agreeing to listen to their viewpoint. Initially, it was okay. Why I have to do that? Because my parents have told me to do so. I have to do it. No question. But now, okay, why I have to do it? Because you say so, or is it correct and is it wrong? And then I also it gets me thinking also as in yes, but they have a point. So I cannot force them. I can only tell them, are you going to do it? Please, will you do it for me? That is the thing. I cannot tell because I have told you have to do it. So you won't do it. That
Yeah.
has changed.
And do the rest of you feel like you were the kind of teenager that Radha is, where she's not just accepting what an adult is telling her to do? Or were you more like, okay, you know what? An adult is telling me to do something, so I'm going to do it.
That's a very good question because I was going to make a similar point. I am Lakshmi's age, but I remember when I was Radha's age, and the character felt very true to a contemporary teenager rather than somebody in the 1950s. So that was going to be my question to you. In fact, that did you model it after a particular teenager you know, or was it just something you literally made up? But yeah, like Neha said, now it's more of a conversation. So we were raised with a more open conversation these days. I don't feel like it would have happened in the 50s. So the just that part of Radha's character, how she went from village clever girl in the village to a girl who's mouthing off to her elder sister, it that felt a bit very contemporary. It didn't feel like it would have happened in the 50s.
Yeah, I agree with Chavi. For me also, like growing up, I think I was a troublesome child for my mother to some extent because
Oh,
there
I
could
know
be.
you were. I know you were, Gunjan. I feel it. I feel it.
So I was like always like, um, that person did not reply when I greeted them that day. It happened twice. I'm not greeting them anymore. You can't do anything about it. And I would stop greeting the person. If you're not showing me respect, I'm not showing you respect, kind of a thing. And I would keep irritating my mother with things like, एज की रिस्पेक्ट क्यों दूं एज की रिस्पेक्ट क्यों दूं if he or she's born before me, why should I respect them?
Right.
I really did give her a tough time. She had a tough time with me. So actually they used to tell me that we are thankful that you are not a boy, otherwise you would have been posting your bail all the time. That is what you would have done, gotten into fights, ended up in jail. So, uh, I don't, but
Well,
I feel that what Chavi said, open conversations,
yeah.
and I have to say it here, Neha has the most wonderfully brought up teenagers. Though whatever
Oh,
she may say, I have met her son, and he is amazing. If I can do half a good job as her, which I don't think so because my son has my genes also, so I would be very happy. I would be really happy, but does not look. It's like it's possible. So.
oh, that's funny. Well, the Radha character really kind of mirrors me from the ages of about 13 to 15, and I was very, I saw the way that my father disrespected my mother. Just in the sense that my mother never got to make major decisions about what house we were going to buy. My father just bought a house without consulting her and said, okay, we're moving. Or he would say, well, I'm going to accept this other job, that happened in this city. And so we're moving again. Or I just bought us a car without consulting my mother ever. And so I saw this over and over and over again as we were growing up. And I started disrespecting my mother also because I thought, oh, she has no agency. Why do I have to listen to her? My father doesn't listen to her. My brothers don't listen to her. Why do I have to? So that's kind of what happened in my case. And it wasn't until I matured that I realized that not giving her that kind of respect was a shortcoming of my father's. It wasn't something that she deserved. It wasn't that she didn't have her own agency. It was that she had always been taught to just take whatever her husband gave her. She wasn't raised to stand up to her husband. So at the age of, I think it was 64 or 65, my mother finally got a divorce from my father. And she just blossomed into this very happy person. And she started doing all kinds of fun things. She took up swimming, which she had never done before. She started her own community garden and hanging out with all of the people who were doing community gardens in the area. She loved to play bridge, so she had her own set of gal pals that she played bridge with all the time, and they laughed and they, just told all kinds of fun jokes and everything. And I thought, wow, this is a mother I didn't even grow up with. I didn't even know my mother was capable of so much fun and so much humor. So I think that she really came into her own once she got away from my father. Now, this is no shade on my father because my father is also a wonderful person. It's just that he was also raised in a very traditional Rajasthani household where his father made all the decisions. And so my father made all the decisions. I think he just felt it wasn't my mother's purview. So why would he involve her anyway? So, and of course, when they got married, neither my mother nor my father, as they ultimately told me, wanted to get married. They both wanted to have their own lives and their own careers and their own, time before they had to start having children. They didn't have a choice about whether they wanted to have children or not. So I think that for both of them, it was a better thing to not be together any longer. And I think my father really missed having my mom in his life. I think he really realized what a what a travesty it was, you know, and the way that he had treated her, that maybe he could have treated her better when she left. My mother, on her part, never wanted to get back together with my dad. She was like, okay, you know what? I'm happy. This is great. And she had a boyfriend. I mean, she had like everything. It was really wonderful, and kudos to her. And you know, she told my father when she got a divorce, she said, "Look, I don't want anything from you. I just want to sell." They had two houses, and she said, "You get to stay in your house. I'm going to sell the house that I live in, and I'm going to move closer to Alka and Brad because you know, they're more progressive than you are, and so I want to stay with them." And so she bought herself a condo when she came down to California, and it was so lovely because when I picked her up at the airport, she said to me, "Honey, that's the first airplane trip I ever took all by myself." And it was just lovely to see her come into her own like that. So anyway, that is sort of a little bit of my family history, and maybe the reason why Radha is as obstreperous as she is, because I was like that too. And I think so much of that was due to the fact that I just thought, why does my mother deserve respect? She doesn't get it from anybody else. Why would I respect her also?
Okay. Shreya Sen, would you like to add something?
No, I'm
No?
pretty, I
Okay,
think
I'm
everything covered.
moving on to the next one. Um, the fourth one, Lakshmi's knowledge of natural remedies are recognized by both the Maharani she worked for and Dr. Kumar. What do you think Lakshmi learns about herself and her place in the world at the end of the novel? Um, would Charvi like to start this time?
So the point I wanted to make about this one, I think Alka covered in the initial statements she was making, how the juxtaposition of natural medicine versus allopathy, it's just taken for granted. Like you can go to the Ayurvedic doctor in the morning and you can go to an allopathy doctor in the evening, and it's just something we take for granted. So I really liked how that was handled, and it's not handled in a witch doctor way, which I really enjoyed reading.
Um, Shreya Jadhav.
Well, I feel initially Lakshmi did not know that she had the power of, actually treating so many people with the herbs. I feel she realized it once she met Dr. Kumar, and he made her realize that this can be used actually to cure many more people rather than using her knowledge the way Samir actually used it with. So I feel it's great she realized it on her own that she can use it for some better purpose. That's all.
Great. Shreya Sen.
Yeah, similar to what Shreya said, I think for the longest time she was using that knowledge to survive, and seeing that to shift to no, this is my purpose to heal, to make a difference to people's life. Like it went from survival to this is my purpose, and that I am here for a reason, was almost like an awakening. And it was an interesting journey of the awakening, because right before that she was completely crashing. Like it was ground zero to an absolute blossoming. And like I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting her to take it from just like I've learned this from my mother-in-law, and just take it to something else. So I thought that was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, that's great. We'll go with Lekha.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone said. Just to add to that, that this awakening came at a point when she has nothing to do. Means her world just crashed down. She didn't know what to do, and I actually in this book I was not expecting that this will come, and I was really happy that she got to do things with the medicine which she has learned with to her mother-in-law. And she went to a hospital, and when she cured people she saw the response she got. So that was really like nice ending I felt. Like I cannot think of any like better ending than that. So that's it.
Great. Ruchi?
Most of them have actually covered the points. I would only like to add one thing that Lakshmi's knowledge about herbs was something that had actually overwhelmed us while we were reading the book. Shreya and I both, after like every 2 or 3 chapters, we used to, because we were buddy reading, we used to actually discuss about these medicinal facts that were used in the book, and we used to like think like how well researched Alka must have been when she has, like, for example, mentioned about bauchi oil or something like that. And after actually finishing the book, we Shreya, I think Shreya actually went on the website of Amazon, and she was trying to search for bauchi oil so that she can actually for her hair remedy or something like that. So this somewhere changed us, like in terms of going towards natural ingredients or natural remedies, something like that.
That's great. Neha?
That, can I just say that is
Yeah,
really great, because that is one of the comments I get most from readers. Where can I get that? Where can I also, use this for my body? And I think one of the coolest things that I get to tell people is that, when you grow up in a South Asian household and you grow up with your mother using all these spices in her food and putting coconut oil in her hair to condition it, you grow up with this kind of stuff in your DNA. Like, you already know that there are all these natural ingredients you can use. You don't have to rely completely on medicinal things and ointments and, bad, foul smelling things to get yourself back to health again. Like, to this day, my father drinks warm milk with turmeric powder in it and a little bit of honey or sugar or whatever he puts in there every night. My dad is 88 years old and he still walks 2 miles a day, and he swims, and, he plays bridge. He's mentally very healthy. And so, I attribute so much of that to all of the spices that we have all ingested our whole lives. And Dad is a great cook. So whenever I go down and visit him in LA, he always has, all this food that he's already cooked, aloo gobi sabji, and he's already has dals, and he loves karelas, and he mixes them with all the spices and everything, and he makes all of that for me before I ever even get down there. So he just pulls things out of the fridge and says, "Here, honey, have some of this." And I love the idea that we can educate the rest of the world with all of the spices that we've all grown up with, because they are amazing for our lymphatic system, our digestive system, our skin, our muscles. All of that is really amazing. I hope that Indians do not get hooked forever on those Maggi noodles, which are just processed food and not so good for you. And pizzas and, all of those things that I see, when I go to India now. Pizza Hut is everywhere, and there's McDonald's, and there's all of this, fried food and processed food. And I kind of hope that once again, there'll be a resurgence, even in India, of, using more of the natural spices, which are just better for you.
yeah. The junk food culture has certainly increased. Neha, you'd like to go next?
Yeah, so I think the question has been answered, and Alka also, mentioned about her experience, so I can understand. And Alka, you mentioned about how you could, you thought about every process, and then you managed to write the story, and then, compile the story. So in the end, I think I guessed that Lakshmi was to found her purpose, because the way that things moved, Radha got pregnant and she went to this hill station, and Dr. Kumar met her, and then she also had an interaction with all the patients, and she found her healing. So I think you have connected the dots very well. That's all I could say.
I am so excited that you just called it a hill station. because that is what I grew up knowing it as, up in Shimla, because we used to go up there in the summertime, and my father would stay down and work, and my mother and my brothers and I would be up in Shimla for like a month, during the summers, and we called it going up to the hill station. But I didn't mention that in the book because I thought people are not going to understand what hill station is, but you do. Yay!
You can relate to this.
Indians can relate so much more to some of the things that I have in the book than Americans can. And so that is really a privilege for me to talk to all of you, because you understand everything that is, in Hindi in the book. And you didn't have to rely on the glossary. You didn't have to rely on the cast of characters in the front. You could just relate to all of those people.
Right.
Great. Charvi?
I've had my say, and I'm really excited to hear what Alka had to say about it as well. And in fact, I was going to mention the glossary, because what kind of feedback have you got from the West is what I wanted to know. When I read it, I didn't realize it, and then I saw the glossary and I was like, wow, wait, did I actually read everything and not realize this was going to be there at the end? And I also listened to the audiobook, and it's funny not mentioned my favorite character so far, which is Malik. And his speech is like, did you get any feedback from non-Hindi speaking audiences about it? Because it's very typical to Indian.
You mean from the audio version or just in the book?
In the book as well, and the audio version. Because in the audio version, he's Malik.
Yes. And okay, so here is what I wanted to do. I wanted to break some stereotypes in the book. And you, if you're going to write, you get to do that. You get to determine how you want your characters to be, aside from their sort of stereotypical projections in the media. One of the things I wanted to break was this idea that Hindus and Muslims cannot get along. Because in India, they do get along, they do work together, they do live side by side, they do make movies together, they do a lot of things together. And here in the West, the only things they know are that Hindus and Muslims have conflict, because in the media, that is what is shown. When there is a conflict in India, that's the only thing they ever project. So I wanted to portray in my book, a Hindu and a Muslim who actually do have a symbiotic relationship, like Lakshmi and Malik. That was so important to me. I don't shy away from the fact that Malik is sometimes, looked at differently, because he is more of a servant class, and also because people like Sheila Sharma may think that they are better than somebody like Malik. But I also wanted to just portray that good relationship. So that has been really good. I think that in my responsibility as an author, I need to leave people with an impression that is hopeful rather than one that tears people apart. I do not want to tear people apart. That is not my MO. That is not the way I want to write, or that is not the way I want to leave readers with. So the other thing that I wanted to create a better relationship with is the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law relationship. So this is why Lakshmi Saas is a very generous person. She treats her just like a daughter. She is wonderful to her. I have a wonderful mother-in-law. My mother was a great mother-in-law to my husband, and I don't know why we have to perpetuate this relationship of evil mother-in-laws. So I wanted to create a better relationship that maybe people can use as a model. So that was another stereotype that I wanted to tackle. And I think the third stereotype, which I've already mentioned, was this idea that India is this illiterate, bereft country, because there are so many Indians who read and write and, are all for a progressive India. And I know there's so many movements afoot for the LGBTQ movement, for adoption in orphanages, for, the education of girls in rural villages. So these are all really important precepts that I want to always convey in my writing.
Okay,
I thought you managed to do that quite organically, so I quite enjoyed reading that.
Excellent.
Great. Gunjan, you'd like to add?
No, I think it's done well. So, no.
Okay, awesome. I'll move on to the fifth point. So the novel is set in 1950s Do you think the status of Indian women has changed since then? Also, is the caste system shown in the novel still in place today? And in addition to the caste system, we also see a distinct politics of economic privilege being played off, which Lakshmi and Radha become eventual victims. How do you think is that privilege politics still relevant, or has the situation reached some equality in the present day and age? So it's about two things I think about the status of the Indian women since the 1950s till today, as well as the whole caste system and economic privilege differentiation that we see a lot in India. So let's start with Ruchi this time.
Okay. So, talking about the status of Indian women from 1950 to now, I think this is a very subjective question because a lot of women have been there, like they are into managerial positions, into CXO levels, and still there is a part, a strata of the society which is still way too backward. So when we visit those kind of women, we really don't know what they are going through. Maybe they are still into that backward kind of a society where they are not getting those rights that they should enjoy as a woman. So I don't think India has still been too forward considering women, and the fact that caste system still exists in each and everything for just I can consider about education. So even if you want to get into a top B school, because so since I'm a recent MBA graduate, I can take this example as a B school. So caste system is prevalent there as well, because uh, yeah, apart from your marks, what also matters is your caste. So a lot of there's a lot of politics around that. So I think that has also not gone. And talking about Lakshmi and Radha, I believe that they were deprived because of their caste. They were actually taken aback because if Radha would have if in place of Radha it would have been Sheila, one of the girl of Maharani, I think things would have turned out to be different. So they wouldn't have to have leave the place, or maybe she would have been married off, or something would have happened. But not what happened to Radha. So a lot of injustice was done on that part as well.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Lekha, you'd like to go next?
Yeah, I think the status of women has improved since 1950s, but still there is a lot of room of for improvement. Like Alka said, she faced some like problems at her workplace, which I think we all of them has faced at some point of time, because at workplace still there that you don't get equal pay, you don't get good promotion. Men are still considered for some job. If you say that okay, I can do this better, they don't consider you. So this has happened with me also. So I think there is a lot of like room for improvement, and people like have lot to do in this regard, because if, a woman is still not considered as a strong person to do something like strong mentally or well educated. Even if you're from a B school, and if a guy is from B school, a guy will always get a preference. So like for marketing jobs, for example, guys are said to be a better suited for that, because you have to be out there and it's not an office job. Like in my previous job, I have experienced that. So that is the thing. And regarding casteism, it's still there in India. In marriages, intercaste marriages are not acceptable. There is honor killing. Like people, they actually go and kill someone in name of caste. So that is the like the worst thing can happen to anyone. So this thing is like my cousin had an like he married an American. So he was staying in America. So his parents accepted that marriage. But here in India, my other related relatives, they still talk about that how can he do that? It's such a crime. They have stopped talking to him. Like they've just outcasted him. Like he has done something really bad. So when I saw that, I was like, what he has done? Like you think that like in India caste is a big thing, but in America and other places it's not. So like people take that as a top like thing to ascertain a person's character, like uh, this in the Muslim and Hindu marriage also. That is the not acceptable. If the caste system is there, interreligion is a lot way to go to do that. So it's still there, I think.
Yeah. Neha, you'd like to go next?
So, as everybody said, caste system is, I mean, what it was prevalent before, it is not the same as of it now. But having said that, caste system is always going to remain, and privilege politics is going to be played, even though people, act cool on the basis of equality. There still remains a border or a caste system, which is, it is there to be used for politics or to be, demeaning people. I don't think it will ever go out of the system, even though you may say equality, but it is going to be remaining as it is. But yeah, from 1950s, there definitely has been a change as of now.
Did any of you
Okay.
guys, when I was in India in 2019, I saw in the Times of India, there was this wonderful article about a woman, and I wrote about it in a blog on my site, the hennaartist.com. And it was a woman who was a lawyer in India. I don't remember where she was from, but it had taken her 9 years to get a certificate of no caste, no religion. And she was she's a lawyer, and it had taken her 9 years to get the certificate from the federal government. And she was encouraging everyone to get something like that because she is so against this whole idea of preferential treatment being given to certain castes. Which I just thought was amazing, and I wondered if anything had ever come of that, or is there a movement afoot for people to try to get rid of the caste system? Like Neha said, I think it's as difficult to get rid of the caste system as it is to get rid of the nuclear family idea. So I don't know. Has anything changed at all? Are there people who are trying to abolish the whole caste system?
Alka, it's a change that some of us are trying to do. So, like when I introduce myself, I just say Gunjan. I never say my full name, and then I have people hounding me, "Pura naam, full name," and I'm like so irritated. I'm like, "What do you have to do with my full name? Isn't Gunjan enough for you? Is it sufficient?" And in the same way, we will say things have improved from the 50s. Have they? They haven't. My son's school has put his name as so and so with my husband's name in the middle and the surname. Excuse me, I also was involved in bringing him into this planet. So kindly give me some credit. And why, teachers will act all, they'll be like, me doing his classes with him is very normal. That is what I was born to do. My husband comes, oh, he's such a participating father. Let's get him a trophy, some garlands, some flowers also. Let's celebrate that day. How has it changed? What has changed? You are just telling me that because I can wear a crop top, that is freedom. No, it is not. That is my right. Get a life. Nothing has changed. So it's
Yeah.
just like, if you and we women want to make ourselves feel better, so we tell our mothers tell us, your father would never let me do this, and we will go and tell my daughter, oh, you are so much better. We were not allowed to do this. Have, does anybody think for a minute why does the word allowed come? So it's the same
Yeah.
with caste. My hairdresser is cutting my hair. Are you? She mentions a caste. I'm like, no. Acha, next try. And unless she can figure it out, you have to cut my hair. What has my caste got to do with my hair? Nothing. Just cut the damn thing and get over with it. So
Um,
it's
you
it's
guys, excuse me for just a second. I'm going to go and get my power supply because it looks like my
sure.
computer's about to go. But I'm listening. Okay, I'm listening.
Sure. So like that's what I mean. Is I don't think anything has changed for the women, nor from the viewpoint of caste. People are trying, but I don't know. It's like Neha said. I agree. It's going to take a long, long time.
Yeah. Shreya Jadhav, you'd like to go next? Shreya Jadhav, and then you can go.
Yeah, I agree with views expressed by others, especially Gunjan. I feel just let's just hope that things will change slowly but steadily.
Okay, Shreya Sen.
Yeah, so in I think a lot of us live in our bubbles, and there is the prevalence of the caste system, um and how women are treated. Like, I am in a profession, and when I started as a wedding photographer, I was one of the 10 women photographers in the industry. And they would people continue to ask, like, they will assume that my team people are the leaders and I'm not. So, and even in terms of, I don't know whether this is the caste system, but it's something that I noticed even this week. And like, just the way we, like, as privileged, in a city like Bombay, which is still so modern, you still have this thing of service lifts. You still have houses which have separate cutlery for maids. And my driver came the other day, and I gave him a glass of water, and it was a regular glass. And he and I was just observing. He took the glass and he drank it without touching his lips. And I looked at him. I said, "Why are you not drinking water normally?" And the thing is, some of it is so ingrained in us, and the boundaries are so tightly packed, until the next generation steps up, gets educated, gets breaks that stereotype. That generation continues to live in that bubble, which is sad, but at least I guess I'm glad we are slightly waking up to it, noticing it, and people are willing to rebel and break it. And there's rebellion happening top down, as in the privilege speaking up, as well as from the bottom too, which is great. And people who haven't spoken up earlier are speaking up. So I guess change will happen when things, when just people start saying, no, this is not, it can't be that this is just the limit to my life just because I'm from this minority group, or that I'm just a woman. So I'm glad people are waking up to that. Um, so yeah.
Great. Charvi.
Yeah, just the fact that we're having these conversations means it's prevalent, right? Otherwise, there would be no need for this conversation. We're still not having a conversation whether the earth is flat, because that's done and, dealt with. So I'm glad we're having these conversations, but also, it also means that there is something to still talk about. And something Shreya said, yeah, I'm glad people who did not speak up earlier, the privilege, they are speaking up. But I also realized that that moment has passed, and now the privileged, we are giving the mouthpiece to the people who need to do the speaking up, which is what I feel is evolution. So I'm glad it's moving in the right direction. But the fact that the glass ceiling still exists, whether or not it's slightly higher or lower, that's hardly relevant at this point, whether it's patriarchy or caste system.
So true. Did I miss out anyone? Neha, did you speak? I mean,
Yes, I did.
okay. Okay, great. So it's been 2 hours, I guess, almost, since we all have joined this discussion. And thank you everyone for joining. I did not realize, I mean, it was really fun to have you, Alka, and I had a lot of laughs as well. And it's always great to know, a writer's experience. And you've really presented everything really beautifully. And everybody who has joined has shared their experiences. And there's so many points that we really touched upon, during this discussion. So, unfortunately, I think I'll have to wrap up the AMA, but because I think most of you guys did ask, your question that you had. So I hope that's okay. And yeah, would you like to just end, Alka? Like, would you like to just give one message that you would like to really give to your readers of your book, of one major takeaway that you want them to really have from this book?
Yeah, my major takeaway, and I think we've kind of talked about that, is that I really do feel that women deserve to make all of the choices that determine their destiny, that none of those choices should be taken away from them, that everybody deserves to know, the lay of the land, whether it's something new that's being done in Poland or, in Spain, and, the women in India should know about it too. So everybody deserves to make all of these choices because, whatever choices we make are going to impact the rest of our lives. So it's so important to know what those are. I also think that it's better for our mental health to have choices that we get to make. That way, we don't ever have to blame anybody else for the way our lives have turned out. We are taking responsibility completely for our lives. And we say, okay, you know what? I made that decision. I have to live with it, or I have to change it, or I have to make my situation better because that is something that I have the power to do. And I think that once we get that kind of power and once we acknowledge it, it makes us a stronger person. I do think women are more resilient. I do think that they're smarter than the other gender. I do think that they are more adaptable because they bring little children into this world, and they have to be adaptable in order to do that because little children come with their own personalities, as we all know. And so I do think that women are so much more powerful, and yet we treat men like with kid gloves. I don't know why. We feel like they have these fragile egos and we have to keep their egos going. And frankly, it just makes my head explode. All of this makes my head explode, that we have to kowtow to men who really, I don't think, are as fabulous as we are. And it's okay. My husband knows how I feel about this. So, he's like, he's a strong man, and he understands, how I feel about things. And I would never have married a man who didn't sort of also subscribe to my beliefs because, that would have been detrimental to my mental health. So anyway, I want to thank you all so much for joining me this morning. And it's been lovely to talk to all of you. You guys also answered some questions for me about your lives as they are lived currently, which then I get to share now with other book clubs, which will be really fabulous. And, you guys, if you want to write about your experiences, about your mother's experiences, talk to your mothers, talk to your grandmothers if they're around, talk to your aunts about what their lives were like, and write about that. It's important. It's important to write down that history. We Indians have not had a lot of our written history written for us. And so it is up to you, this generation, to start writing that history. And I applaud you for it, and I will encourage you all the way to do that. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you for joining. So, yeah, I'll
Alka, please
yeah.
do an interview with your mom. I would love to hear what your mom has to say about the book.
Oh, we lost my
Like
mother in
if
2012.
Oh no, okay.
Yeah. So she saw me present the Henna Artist as my thesis, which was wonderful. She loved the book. She loved the fact that I was portraying her as a henna artist, which was funny to her because she had never done her own henna in her life. But she was really lovely. So
That's
I miss her every day, but I feel like she is with me on this journey. It took me 10 years to bring the Henna Artist to the publication world. And so I feel like she was with me in that journey. She helped me along that journey, even if she couldn't be here physically. So that was really lovely.
Thank you
But
so much.
my dad is super proud of me. My dad is always present at all of my public readings, at libraries, at all kinds of virtual events. My dad always says, honey, let me know what the Zoom URL is, because I want to join too. I want to hear what's going on. He's told 500 of his closest friends, you've got to buy my daughter's book. And by the way, the sequel, The Secret Keeper of Jaipur, which is all about Malik at the age of 20, is coming out in June 22nd this year. And then the third book, which will be about Radha as an adult in Paris working as a perfumer, is coming out in 2022. And then, of course, we have Frida Pinto starring as Lakshmi in the TV production of the Henna Artist, which I hope will start filming in 2022 also. So we'll see. Let's hope COVID goes.
Wow. The movie part is
Amazing.
certainly very exciting, and really curious to know about the perfumer part. It's really a very not so talked about profession. So I'm sure you're going to create more waves with that aspect as well.
Yeah,
Great, great.
absolutely. Bye,
Awesome.
guys.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye.
joining.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.